who came up with the idea behind all the nobles of the Viscounty, all the politics with the gnomes?
Well, that was one of my, there was always the motto of Verbobonc. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Stone and stone.
Yeah.
It's on my website.
I have not played Living Greyhawk since the campaign ended, so I don't remember a lot of it, but that was built in. And then the rest of the stuff, the interactions, are things that we added based on that framework. So the whole conflict with the gnomes and the greed and all of that were stuff that we added to the campaign.
Yeah, you guys were pretty inventive, imaginative. It just so much related to real history of how nobles and also fantasy literature too, how you guys, how well developed all that became to being. And then you really pulled it together in that first module. It was really impressive. It inspired me to write all that dialogue.
Yeah, and I'm glad it did, because that was the whole point. We wanted to inspire people to explore our portion of Living Greyhawk. That was our goal. And we wanted them to play the modules, write their own modules, take it home in their home games and do things with it, alter what they needed and take what they wanted out of it, and just make a good experience for their players.
I can think of so many questions. Wow. So many things are hitting me. Okay, the first thing right off the bat from the beginning, I guess I should ask, you said blank slate, but not really, because you still had the canon from the Greyhawk Wars. So you had to use that, right?
Yeah, we did have that. And that plays in later on to some of the storylines, particularly in the dynamic between Lord Melanos and Lady Asbury. Yeah, there are other things that are involved too. The final battle when the Viscount was invaded by the forces from the Tomb of Elemental Evil.
Yes, Battle of Emerald Meadows.
Yes, and that played into the storyline that we developed as well. But as far as the other things, we nodded to them, we acknowledged them, but we went our own way and we wrote them in so it made sense, but we didn't dwell on them.
I think as a player, you would expect more connections with the Temple of Elemental Evil, but I can see how you put all that behind you guys, because there's so much later in the timeline, and it was put down already after the Second Rising, and you had to come up with new adventures and things that are happening in the land besides that old temple place, and specifically the Village of Nold, which I think you guys pretty much ignored of all those modules.
Yeah. We, like I said, they wanted something that was distinct from the Temple of Elemental Evil. They wanted to move beyond that and allow us to explore the region, create new things rather than rehash old things.
Well, to tell you the truth, the reason it's so useful to me, it's a couple of things. I explain this all the time on all my videos, and you don't know who new is going to be watching, so I have to explain it and to see where I'm coming from. So my project, I want to run the Temple of Elemental Evil again, but I want to do it right. I want to do it as Gary Gygax intended. And what did he intend? Well, if you read the DM notes, he intended you to expand the module, the campaign, to flush it out, fill it out, create more locations in Nob, not just the first 4. That was just examples. He had it all created, but he couldn't give 2,000 pages of notes to Frank to have him create a module from. They had to limit it. So they expect the Dungeon Master to expand all this. Also, just like Hommlet was. But also, there was more than one outpost out there besides the Moe House. The lesser cults, like the Air, Earth, Water, and Fire, had some outposts out there too. But anyway, he expects you to do all that. So as a Dungeon Master, that's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't have time or the imagination to do it. So that's where I come in. I've been working on this for 7 years. And what helps me a lot, now I have a reason for this, is the modules from Living Greyhawk, but not just that. What happened was Anna Myers took all those locations for her map and she placed them. So that kind of cemented those locations in canon. But when she placed those locations on the map, well, that's it right there. So that did a lot of the work for me. These locations have been placed with some more roads and more streams and rivers and a lot more detail to the landscape. That helped a lot. And so what I did is I reviewed the modules I had, and it's just a brief paragraph like of Penwick or Sir Knob. There wasn't a lot of information. And so what I did is I took that information and I expanded it 100-fold. I created all the NPCs and all the locations, all the shops, all the organizations, all the leaders, quest, hooks, maps, dialogue, a lot of work. I spend 3 to 6 hours a day for the last 7 years working on this stuff. And I try to get as much help as I can from you guys, the guys on Discord. And I try to encourage everybody to help out and give them credit. And I've only been denied one time from somebody that didn't want their stuff done, but everybody else has been very forthgiving and helpful and wonderful to work with. That's why. So what I'm getting to, the point I'm getting at is, if it wasn't for your Living Greyhawk modules, this campaign project world, which is fan content, by the way, it's free for everybody to use, would not be as possible. It would be much more limited without your guys' work to help flush this out. So I used it to flush out this campaign, not the campaign timeline that you guys originally wrote them for.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, because most of us didn't have much ego involved in what we were writing. I mean, it was a collaborative affair. We talked among each other. We traded ideas. We traded NPCs. Everybody used everybody's input. We were more concerned with creating an experience for our players rather than, we were getting paid nothing for these. I mean,
you didn't get free admission to the convention?
No, what we got was a prepackaged module, a D&D module.
No way.
When 3rd edition was premiered, I was at Gen Con in Milwaukee. They brought me in to teach people how to create characters. And I sat at a table all day with people going through the rules on how to create their character. And that got me free admission to the con. And I got to play 2 modules, one of which was the Premier Greyhawk module with Eric Mona.
That's awesome.
The other one was run by Ed Greenwood, which was the Living Cities module.
That's great. I've never met him. I'm West Coast, so I hardly ever, I never made a lot of money in my career as IT. So I never really had the money to go back east. But I did all the conventions out here. And typically out here, if you volunteer for 2 sessions, 2 events, you get a free pass to come to the con. That's how we used to do it.
Well, it used to be, depending on how many slots you filled, you could get a room too.
A room too?
Yeah.
Dang, no way.
Yeah, I did that for the first Gen Con, but they forgot to book any rooms in a hotel. So we wound up in dorm rooms at Marquette University. It was the middle of summer. They had no air conditioning.
Oh, man.
But I lived in the Midwest, so I was going to Gen Con. I was going to Origins over in Columbus. I was going to Winter Fantasy, which was really an excellent con in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was RPGA's main con. You'd go there and you'd play all the Wizards of the Coast, Living Force, Living Cities, Living Greyhawk. And that's where Living Arcanus premiered, which was by Paradigm Concepts. And that's so, it was
a hotbed.
It was a lot of fun. We had cons in Chicago, cons in Southern Illinois, cons in Indianapolis. There was a lot of activity.
Back in the late 80s, cons were up to 5 in the West Coast, 5 to 10,000 people would go. And then towards 1999, when EverQuest came out, the cons were down to 500 people coming.
Yeah. Well, the last time I went to Gen Con, there were 50,000 people there.
Well, Gen Con's a whole nother ballgame. I'm talking about regular conventions. Not the big ones.
Yeah.
But I'd like to ask more questions about your writing with this module. But before I do that, anybody on the Discord or anybody on YouTube, if you have any specific questions about this campaign or this module, now's the time to ask, and we'll go ahead and ask them. And also you, Hearn, I know you're running this right now, so think about any questions you want to ask him too. But I want to start off with the first question is, when you wrote this Noble Ambitions module, what literature did you borrow from to give you the idea to do something, do an encounter like this with a noble? And what kind of experience in your past got you to think of this up to create this kind of encounter?
I was a communications manager in college and had worked at the corporate level for communications and writing. That was something I did a lot. I also took a lot of courses in political science, politics, and history. I did a lot of European and medieval history courses, and even Japan and China. And so I had all of these influences. When I began writing, I continue to write. I just don't publish anything now anymore, but I write for myself. I grew up in a lot of different places in the United States. My family moved around a lot. In fact, I attended 17 schools before I graduated from high school, in 3 different high schools. And I've seen a lot of the country, met a lot of different people. And I think that experience helped me with character development and people that I'd met, people that I hated, people that I liked, people that I loved. And all of that influences your experience and what you wind up putting on the page. Plus, I started playing role-playing games back before D&D. When I was in high school, we'd pull out Fritz Lieber, Tolkien, or Howard, and we'd build games based on what we perceived those mechanics to have been. I mean, I stole 2-sided dice from my mom's mahjong sets and things like that. And, it was an imagination, and it let you think about, what kind of worlds you would want to build if you could build your own. And Living Greyhawk, kind of gave us that opportunity.
I get it. That did. I know a lot of players, most players expect dungeons and killing stuff and getting big treasures, but these modules were more focused on politics of some important things that are happening in the realm of Verbobonc. And I thought it was a great way to get the players to learn and experience and understand the ramifications of what that world is like, to engage them in it.
Yeah, well, it's, some people just want to hack and slash things.
Yeah.
But, after a while, that gets kind of boring.
True. Well, actually, if you just want to have fun, that's what Old School Essentials does. They have some great modules that are just dungeons, and they're a lot of fun to play, but they're not, it's not a massive epic campaign like the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Right.
So that campaign will take 2, 3, 5 years to run through, and you want to have more depth.
Well, I remember when we were doing Undermountain and a gaming group.
I tried that too. Oh,
and it took forever. Plus, we had to do our own maps.
After the 4th time in there, my players got bored.
Yeah, but yeah, it's. I mean, you wind up when you get to the point where you're writing that you've been through so many different games and so many scenarios that other people have written. You have a general idea of how to put something together, and of course everyone thinks, well, I can do it better than they did, and there's that as well. And I hope that there are people out there that are reading what I've written and say to themselves, I can do that better. And I say, go for it.
Well, we had a question from one of our Patreon Discord members, Randy. He's not on YouTube right now, so he had to go through Discord. And he asked, Alenard. There's a character named Alenard? Alenard.
Let me look.
Alenard. I think he's the brother to Simon.
Someone may have added that later.
Yeah, I think so too. That name came up in another module. I don't know what module it is. I'm sure he'll tell us, but he went.
I'm not sure. Because
that's the problem with Living Greyhawk modules when you're trying to do something with them, like my project is trying to weed out the cross-reference. Sometimes it's not quite the same lore consistency. And so I spent 7 years going through it, trying to, make sense of it for this campaign world I'm running. Things like that. Like exactly where is the barony line for Lady Eleanor, Lady Asbury, House Osbury's lands? Where is that border? And nobody knows.
Nobody knows, right? Yeah.
And so I just placed it right down the middle of Penwick.
Well, in a way, you were asking influences. Eleanor Asby, Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Oh, that's where you got that from. Wow. That character seems so real. I love the fact her personality. In fact, I studied posh. I studied Old English, how to talk like a noble, and I wrote down a lot of phrases, like hundreds of them. Did a lot of research, and I tried to pronunciate them correctly and talk like her while role playing. And I had them as reference, and I created some great dialogue for her, so she could speak that way, like a legitimate noble from back then was talking to you. Yeah, I think I did some pretty good work with that, and it's all in my DM notes. That's why I was thinking that it might be a good idea to take this module and write it for this campaign, because I can add all my artwork, the maps. I already made a map of the dungeon, by the way. I don't know if you remember, I showed that to you before.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll put it on screen again. Oops, not that map, not that map, that map. So that's the map. If there's any players out there, you should not be watching. This channel is only for dungeon masters. No players allowed. So anyway, this is a VTT map I made a long time ago with a different program. Right now I use Dungeon Draft and Wonder Draft. This was made from that one on Steam called Dungeon something. But it looks really good if you zoom in and use the Fog of War. Like that room right there. I had some other Dungeon Masters running it too on VTT, and they loved it. And it's really cool. It's full of orcs. There's questions about this too. I wish that other Dungeon Master was here. He has some questions about it, about that riddle that you wrote. I have a question about that riddle.
Oh, wow. It's been a long time.
That riddle is complicated. I don't have it up in front of me.
Yeah, I wanted to make a riddle that, if it was broken down, would be in code. That it was a deciphering type of situation where they listen to the riddle, and if they analyze it, they realize that it's a code and it's telling them things.
The players had trouble deciphering it, because if you look at the map, I was trying to get my pointer to draw on the map, but I won't do it.
It was all
this is
related to the pantheon of Greyhawk.
Yeah, I drew a graphic of that. The 9 axi, the 9 alignments of AD&D. For the Sul pantheon, or was it the? It was the Sul pantheon, yeah. Sul, I think. Well,
yeah, because the person that did it was a cleric of Rao.
Yeah, the riddle led you to the dungeon to find the ancient Sul dungeon, and
Right.
once you get following the riddle, it got you here. And then once you are here, the last part of the riddle tells you where to find the temple in the dungeon. And I had to change a few things to make more sense of it with this map, because so if you look at the map, the first right-hand turn is number 1, because you're supposed to go 7 turns, I guess. That's what the riddle said. Do 7.
Yeah.
So that's 1. This one is 2. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the 7th one, you go down the long hallway to the temple. I added something here, the entrance into the temple. I added 2 columns of shadows trapped into the columns. These shadows were floating around in the columns trying to escape, and they were the temple guards, really. If you were not evil, they would be released, and the shadows would attack the players. That was really scary for the players, the way I described it. So that's what I did. But that riddle's really cool. It really got my players involved. It really got them thinking about it, you know. And this dungeon's really cool. Did you draw this map of this dungeon?
Yeah.
It's interesting. What would have been more interesting is location number 6 is just rubble, dead end. You said in the module that you could add a second level here. And I did add a second level, but I borrowed the map. I didn't make that map. Number 7 right here is a pit trap. At the end of this great hallway is a pit trap. At the end of this is a pit trap. So those pit traps will drop you into the second level. And as any old school D&D is, that second level is deadly. It's some really horrible undead down there. And that's what I did in my campaign.
Yeah, I like that.
It was cool. It's a lot of work to create another level, and I just never got around to it. So I just borrowed somebody's map and I rekeyed it. But if I were to re-release this, I guess, or put it up somewhere, I'd have to make that lower level map from scratch.
Yep.
Just to let you know. I don't know if I want to do that. It's a lot of work. Well, that's the thing about old school D&D. It doesn't matter. See, like the Keep on the Borderlands, they don't The keep on the Borderlands does not carry your first level. If you actually get down into the maze where the Minotaurs are, they don't care. It's your problem. Shouldn't have went down there. They gave you rumors. Don't go farther into the caves of chaos. So if you happen to fall into a trap, you don't die right away, but you do get down to the second level, and there is a chance to get out.
Yep.
You just got to play well, right?
Right.
So that's the key about old D&D.
I created.
This dungeon, who killed all your players? The orcs?
Yeah.
Oh, we got a whole bunch of people going off in the chat here. So Randy said, seems like the riddle didn't match the map. Well, I just counted 7 turns, so it did kind of match, except for the very end was a little bit off, I think. And so we have God, look at this chat here. So Randy said he's from Fort Wayne, and he ran a ton of the RPGA modules back in the day. And then Sarge said Elinard Linus was a typo. And Randy said, seems like the riddle didn't match. And then Sarge said, my players have fun figuring that out, the riddle. Mine did too. I created a chart of the 9 alignments, and I gave it to the cleric, lore. He knows that stuff, so I gave it to him. You can give it to a paladin too. Then Sarge said 653. Oh, Trithrin. Yeah, Trithrin wasn't the Soul Pantheon. And then Sarge says, I didn't find a map online, so I invented my own. You should have found my map and used a cavern complex for the corridors. And yeah, my crew does get to the second level. It'll be a deadly undead down there. All right, so I'm sorry. Kern, you've been sitting here quiet this entire time. I think we should give you a chance to introduce yourself and maybe ask Mr. Rick Bruner a question or two.
Hey, no problem. He's got a lot of really interesting information, and how often do you get to hear from Rick, right?
I know.
So I am more than happy to sit here and be quiet. But
so please introduce yourself. Tell us about your experience, how you started playing D&D, and why you're running this campaign, and how your players are taking it.
Okay, well, my experience with D&D is back in, I believe it was 1981 or 1982.
Oh, you're a late bloomer.
I was 11 years old,
11.
And my friend and neighbor, he had just gotten the red box set, and we dived right into it. And my first module was Keep on the Borderlands. But yeah, that's how I got my start, and I got into DMing. And well, it's been a couple of years, and I'm still running games more than just D&D. The campaign that I was supposed to start last week, a bunch of people had problems. Only 2 people could show up, so we just did a little touching up on characters, working on character development. And we're kicking off in about 13 hours from now for our first session with everybody together. We've got 6 people. 1 is going to join as soon as he gets a new microphone, so hopefully that's not too long. But yeah, I certainly hope that the 6 of them can get away with things.
What have they gotten in the campaign so far?
The recruitment. So the Viscount of Verbobonc has used a cutout man to recruit the party, and they are supposed to go and quietly investigate the bandit raids that have been going on along the roadways around Hommlet.
Yes.
And they've been told to go talk to the innkeeper at the Welcome Winch, and he is their point of contact.
Gundagoot.
And I thought that he made a really good option because, traditional inns, the innkeeper was responsible for keeping an eye on people, who seem suspicious and things like this. And so I figured he would be a really good person for them to be doing their major connection. And of course, later on, then they get to meet the city or the town council and expanding it even further. But they have to prove themselves that they're actually, 1, doing their mission, and 2, are willing to help out the various people of Hommlet. And I'm going to use some of your side quests and a few that I've created as well. I'm hoping they don't discover the moat house too quickly.
I see. Okay, so you didn't start your campaign at the city of Verbobonc. You're starting yours outside of Hommlet.
Yes.
Okay.
So they will all be on the road heading to Hommlet, and they're probably going to run into a few bandits along the way.
Yeah, the standard trope, hit them with bandits on the way to Hommlet.
Yep.
Everybody's been doing that since the 80s.
With them, it's going to be, they're going to fire a few crossbow bolts at them, and they're going to go, oh, well, they're not traitors. This is a group of adventurers. Everybody run away. Adventurers are going to kill us.
Well, I have a couple articles and videos about the bandits and how they're all organized and related. I know basically what every bandit in the campaign knows. So that way, if any players interrogates them, I know exactly what they know. So I know how the campaign can progress by questioning the bandits and humanoids. So that's what's great about this project is that's all connected. So that way you don't have to just guess and make stuff up.
Yes, and I've been taking a lot of notes off of your website and what people have had to say in the Discord as well. And one thing I've noticed about my current party is they're not real combat heavy. They have a barbarian, but everybody else is a very social character. Like they've got a bard. The warlock even seems to be very social oriented. So I know that they're going to be wanting to question people if they can manage to keep them alive that long.
The things that are happening in the Viscounty is a lot of political things, like they pulled back the mounted borderers, patrols of the Cron Hills, the temple agents and bandits are attacking and attacking the merchant caravans, not just humans coming from the Wild Coast or divers or Viscounty to Osfirk and back up the Long Road, but also the gnome caravans too. So even though you didn't run Noble Ambitions or any of those other modules that start in Verbobonc, these things are still happening in the campaign world, so you can still hit them with all sorts of different factions in the campaign, and they can learn more about the campaign that way too.
Speaking with the gnome caravans, in the dungeon of the moat house, one of the captives that's being held there is a gnome.
Yep,
and
we talked about that in Discord.
And based on what you had to say and some of the other players, I gave him a name, so he's the son of the leader of Shirenbob. Yep. And of course he gets an iron ring to one of the party members, marking him as a friend of the gnomes. So at some point they're going to want to go and pay him a visit, and that's going to be able to drag them into things like against the giants.
Yeah, that's another Living Greyhawk adventure is the giants on the move with their attacks from Sheer Knob, and they need help from adventurers to help them.
And the gnomes will be happy to see them once they see the ring, and they go, oh, well, those are the people.
Yeah. So that's a big thing about campaigns is a lot of players don't understand this. You really need to prove yourselves. You need to prove to the NPCs, the people in town, the leaders, that you are adventurers, you are heroes. You can't just go to a dungeon and come back without any proof of any great deeds. Like the B2 module Keep on the Borderlands. I had one group that was really ineffective, and they went there like 4 times, and they just ran away each time, and they came back expecting to be honored as heroes and receive help. And it wasn't going to happen. As far as these people know, these guys could have been the bandits. You really have to prove yourself as successful heroes to get cooperation.
Now, I figure right after they finish the moat house, I'm going to ship them off to Keep on the Borderlands. And one of the things I'm changing is that unnamed cult in one of the caves. I'm making it I'm going to make it a cult of Temple of Elemental Evil.
Oh, okay.
So there's going to be like they're probably recruiting people out there or something, and once they come back with that information and report it to over the council and with St. Cuthbert, that's going to put them in even better graces with the community.
So Rick, you wrote 7 modules, I believe. Were those modules also in this area that Hearn is running his campaign in?
Yeah, all of my modules are set in Verbobonc.
Are there any south of Hommlet?
Yeah, we went into Greenway Valley.
Yeah.
So
you wrote the Greenway is my Greenway?
Yes. It was a play on how green is my greenway.
Yeah, how green is my greenway or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of politics. That adventure is mostly politics. It's just going to Tolver and questioning the clans. There's only a couple times where you fight, where you chase the guy down. Yeah. But all that lore in those modules was of great use for what's happening in the Viscounty and rumors.
Yeah.
Vital information to create rumors from. I created a newspaper, by the way, for Verbobonc, and I only created 2 issues, but these stories are in that newspaper with pictures of like Prince Jim So I definitely want to focus on Noble Ambitions, though, because I know a lot of people watching would like to hear more about it. And we were talking about the riddle. I guess they're saying, I don't know if you're going to remember any of this, but the end of the riddle didn't quite lead to the temple.
Well, the riddle leads to the temple. It doesn't lead once you get into it.
You just got to find it on your own once you get into the temple.
Yeah.
Okay. In my version, I added quite a bit. I keyed that whole module on my website. Every room's keyed. I expanded a lot. I created a lot of description for each room and a lot of treasure and a lot of NPCs and dialogue and stuff. So I expanded it quite a bit more on my version for my personal campaign for fan content. And I added quite a bit. The dwarf is still there. He's got dialogue. I made the dwarf. The dwarf is related to the Rock Hall dwarves.
He was from the Rock Hall dwarves. He was out looking for a place to create his own forge.
He was trying to find the lost city of the dwarves. That was his mission. He's been gone a long time. I was trying to connect the Dwarven Line series with this. That's probably why. So the reason I did that is because what if there was a dwarf player in the campaign? I want to give him something cool. So yeah. I thought that dwarven storyline was really cool. I hooked it with this character in case there was a dwarf and they became friends, and then it led them down that road. I think that's why I did that. Also, after that module, if anybody has any questions about any of this, what Rick's done or that module, just go ahead and ask away. We can ask him while he's here. So the module was very strong, had very strong themes, incredible role-playing moments. That had a lot of drama, serious drama, like out of a movie. Like the first interview with Lady Eleanor and her seneschal, the knight guy. Can't remember his name. And that was a really interesting role-playing scenario where they interview the players to see if she's going to hire them or not as retainers and give them.
Like I said earlier, we did, when we premiered the module, we did that as a LARP.
So then the next strong scene, which I wrote more on, I expanded on, was the next morning when they were going to leave. They're getting ready to go. And she offered one of the players to ride on the back of the wagon if he didn't have a mount. Yeah. And that was a really strong role-playing scene because I added, I don't know if it was in yours too, but description of how talented she was. And not only the way she spoke, but how she rode the horse and her gear, the way she was dressed. I'm always trying to tie this stuff into other things in the campaign that's not related to your module. And one of the things was, I don't know if you said this in the module, but everybody in the city of Verbobonc wants to know what the heck is going on. They want to know. Lady Eleanor is recruiting something, and she's not telling anybody why. And so not only the other lords want to know, which I think is in your module, they're spying on her, Lord Blinius was there trying to figure out what she was up to. But not just them, all the high priest and the high level wizards, like from the Silver Consortium, they sent one of their own to be recruited. So if you happen to be a player that was a wizard, I had the head of the Silver Consortium summon that player and say, okay, Lady Eleanor is recruiting for this mission. I'm sending you. I want you to be my ears and eyes. I want you to tell me everything that's going on and make sure you get into that group. And then also, whatever cleric you're playing or whatever paladin you're playing, same thing. The bishop summons you to his office. I need you there. You represent the church. Don't let me down. And so
I also put in a shadowy person who tried to influence the PCs.
So not only is this going on, but that morning when they're about to leave, one group didn't have a cleric of St. Cuthbert. So I made an NPC that was a cleric of St. Cuthbert. And so Bishop Hoffren sent him. And he's an inquisitor. You know, he's the billet. He's a billet. And he's kind of a jerk. And he's very mean. And he really puts down the players big time. And he was sent to escort her back home to her barony. So that I just threw that in there too, and that was really interesting. And the players noticed that as the cart was taken off, it was very slow, very heavy. It was covered. They had no idea what was in that wagon. So that whole mystery is hanging over them the entire time they're leaving the city. But before that, right after the meeting, which I skipped, is what you're just referring to. This assassin thief person snuck out of the shadows of an alley and whispered secrets into one of the players, caught him alone and told him, don't trust the words he says. He's evil. She's lying. She's you're just being taken by fools. And that was a really dramatic moment too. That freaked the players out as well. I love moments like that in role playing.
Well, but I wanted to sow some doubts. I mean, because in a lot of role-playing games, you're given a mission and that's what you're going to do. And, you know, we're right. And this is, I wanted doubt.
Yeah.
Are we doing what is right? Is this really something that we should be doing? And I wanted to sow that early and then let the players realize for themselves what was going on.
Something like that mechanic, the role-playing mechanic, is really important because it gets the players more engaged. It gets them thinking, curious.
Yeah.
Something's going on here. Something really big, something really dramatic. This isn't just wishy-washy hand-waving junk that we usually get all these years from most modules. This is a serious consideration.
Yeah.
And the players loved it. I added a lot more than that, of course.
Yeah.
I added the events of the gnomes in town the day before. You know, the witness of the arguments on the streets with the gnomes and the humans. The agent of Uas that was at the St. Cuthbert Church, and he caused a riot. And they went storming off to look for gnomes to throw them out of the city. I added all that to my campaign.
Yeah. One of the things that you had advantage of that we didn't have when we were writing these is these modules had to be completed in 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours?
Yes, that they had to be completed in 3.5 hours to fit into the con slots, which were 4 hours each.
I can do a character an hour, an NPC.
We would have loved to put a lot more stuff into them, but we were constrained by, we had to, and we tested them in play tests to make sure that we were, and cut stuff if necessary, to so that we would fall within the time parameters that we were given. Yeah, they had to be played
in 3.5 hours.
No, we had to write them for people who would play them in 3.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a tournament.
Yeah.
That's why that Gnome Giant series, the 3-part series, is three parts in 3.5 hours each. Yeah. So it's a 10-hour module, really.
Yeah. And, you know, that was one of the constraints we had and what we had to operate. And it governed a lot of what we were able to put into an adventure. I mean, it wasn't like we were writing an AP, you know, which you could take 2 years to play. You know, this, everybody, you know, at the end of 3.5 hours, everybody got up and moved on to their next game.
Yeah, that's tough. I know. I used to do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's how they wrote the original modules, like the C1 and the C2. Those are tournament modules.
Yeah.
I don't know if those modules originally from 1980 had a 3.5 hour limit, though. I don't know if they were doing it back then. Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, I remember people playing classics back then, which were pre-gen characters, and you'd come in and they'd give you a character, and everybody.
There's no way you could do a C1. The C1, what's it called? The Tomb of Tamakan?
I mean, that's the way they did it.
You couldn't get out of there in 3.5 hours. I know they had the poison mechanic. You'd die in so many hours.
Yeah. That I was back then, the RPGA even ranked players.
Yeah, I remember. I used to rank Dungeon Masters and give them awards.
It was funny. The gaming group that I played with, it was a group in Peru, Indiana. And once a month, this comic shop would have a game day. All these people would come and they'd play. The number 1 ranked player in Classic and Living Cities, the number 2 ranked player in Living Cities were part of that group. It was hilarious.
Really had a handle on those tournaments, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, so your module you wrote has some very strong themes and encounters, role-playing encounters, and I really engaged the players. So then they finally left the city, and then you gave them little hints. They're being followed. And then they find out that the wagon's going so slow. I got a lot of opportunity to role-play her with one of the players with the high charisma. So that was pretty interesting. And then finally they camped, and then I wrote a whole speech out for her of her history, a speech about what happened after the Battle of Emerald Meadows and how her lands got overrun, and something like that. It's all written out on my page. And then they went to bed, and the players volunteered to help guard the camp. And I made a VTT map for it. It's on the website too. That was pretty heartfelt, her speech about. She finally admitting what's going on. She didn't tell them what's really happening till now. So that was interesting. And so they went to bed, and they had guards. And what my players don't understand, I guess some people don't, but a campfire in the middle of the night, it's a beacon. You can be a mile away and see it.
Not only that, it destroys your night vision.
Yeah. Did you know that firelight, the shadows are deeper behind the trees? It's like you're invisible. So anyway, during that battle, it was interesting, and she came out and fought, and they were pretty impressed. And then they interrogated them in the morning and found out. So I added some more. I linked them with Lakash. He's the merchant. He's posing as a merchant in Verbobonc, and he's hobnobbing with the minor lords there and throwing lots of parties. He's from Divers. Qualid Lakash is from another module. So I created that character, and he's the one that hired the brigands from Packard's Troph, the inn there. I think it was Packard's Troph. And one of the players was staying there. So he witnessed he recognized one of them. So during the investigation, they got it out of them. During the interrogation, they found out they're from that tavern, but they didn't know who hired them because he had a mask or a hood on. Just gave them gold coin and told them to follow them. And they were given strict orders. Burn that wagon down. Do not harm her. So that's very interesting. Bandits are attacking, and they were given strict orders not to harm the lady and to burn that wagon down. So that right there is hugely engaging in any campaign. And so the players are really figuring out. And they figured out by now what's in that wagon already because they peeked. The rogue did. It's full of a smithy. She built enough tools to build a smithy in her hometown. They didn't have a smithy. So it's a very poor holding. So she tells them the story, how poor they are. And they want their treasures of Osbury back after the Battle of Emerald Meadows. So anyway, that was a big scene. And then I have them go through Penwick, and they didn't want to stop there for the night because it wasn't really feasible. So I just had the mayor of Penwick come out and greet them. Then they kept going. And then as they arrived in Asbury Manor, the domain of her manor, I kind of flussed that area out, and I wrote a lot of dialogue and description, flavor text, what it looks like arriving. And then her attitude changed completely. Everybody's calling out to her, Lady Eleanor, you're back. God's bless you, and she's all happy, and she starts galloping into the gates, and everybody's cheering her on. And then they had the big banquet, another big role-playing event that was very dramatic. And I wrote a speech. And it was a very heartfelt speech of her failure to getting help from the Viscount, and that now there's hope. These adventurers, and she introduced the adventurers. And then she takes their good-looking adventurer later after dinner up to the balcony, up on the battlements, and gives him another speech about her dream. And it's a really good, it's a good speech about her dream, and so it made him feel more engaged, like he had to really help her. And so what's interesting about all that, though, another good bit of writing that you did was she is the most illegible bachelorette in the land. If you marry her, you're a lord. And she's really good looking and very young and very powerful, and everybody loves her. She's the something of the celestial circle. Where is that? There you go. She's the ambassador to the celestial circle. You wrote that, right?
No, I didn't write that.
Oh, you wrote later. Okay.
I mean, my characters have been used by lots of different writers now.
That's right. You're right. I remember now. So she had a mental trauma. I wrote that all out, and it's all up on the screen here. She's supposed to be an 8th level bard, which I don't buy. I do not like that stat block, but that's what was in the module, so I kept it. Actually, what I don't agree with is her seneschal, the knight. He's supposed to be a bard, but what are you going to do? So Randy says in Discord that Lady Eleanor is 11th level bard. Oh, so what you're looking at now on screen is the World Anvil public website, fan content. Now, we're all collaborating here. This is all in progress, always. We're always editing this stuff as soon as new information comes to light. So if you guys all think I need to change here, let me know, and I'll do it. Same thing with their seneschal. Where's his name? It should be in here somewhere. He raised her. There it is, Sir Armont. Armont?
Yeah, I think Randy posted it in the chat.
Yeah, I put him as a 44-year-old dude.
Yeah, he was friends to Lady Asbury's parents.
Yeah, and they made him promise to raise her well, and he denied. The Bishop of St. Cuthbert and another one insisted that they raise her. And he told them, no, I'm raising her. And he raised her right. She's very well brought up, very skilled, very bright, really smart, and very popular. So she's basically the most favored bachelorette in the kingdom. So this is an interesting twist to a campaign where players might want to get involved. Maybe it's up to the players, up to the DM, but it's pretty cool. So just like in the fantasy books, right?
Yeah.
I have your module in front of me on the screen, but I didn't know if you wanted me to show it to everybody on screen.
Sure. I mean, I'm in the character descriptions. Let me see if I can post it. Nope.
On the screen is the riddle I was talking about. This is the riddle from the module. It's a cool riddle. Really good writing. You need to make a chart, though, for the alignments for the players. They'll never figure it out. That's the handout for the original recruitment phase at the beginning of the campaign. See, it was run at 591 common year. And where is he? I know he's in here somewhere. Maybe not. He might be in another module. Yeah, it's not here. So after that, the dungeon's really cool. Every campaign I've ever heard of, every group I ever ran, loved that dungeon. They had a lot of fun there. And most of my players always cleared it out. They killed everybody. One group didn't. They went straight to the source, and they snuck out the back secret door with all the loot and the dwarf. They were playing smart, but the other group was really good, I guess, at fighting. And then after you leave the dungeon, they get away. So they got all this loot. They got the dwarf. They got the wagon that's there, the cart. So they're pulling this cart with all this loot on it and this magic gem, this magic longsword. And so they're leaving into the lands of Viscounty. And sure enough, Lord Molinis and his men, all on horseback, are lined up and accosted them, stopped them, and start saying, I found you, you bunch of bandits. So it look like you're absconding with the bulk of her treasure. Hand them over to me.
Yep.
That's great. The players are freaking out. And he was and the sergeant asked if he should give the command to charge. And so as soon as Molinius raised his hand to give the command to take the players, that's when Lady Eleanor and her retina, her men, came over the hill and said, by what right do you accost men in my service on my lands? You go too far, Lord Blinis. Take your escort and withdraw immediately. And that's something the players never really face. You got to realize this is her barony. It's her lands. He's an intruder without invitation. That's a big deal in noble circles. Right?
Yep.
And then she makes a little joke at the end. That's a great module. Really well written. What are you guys writing about?
He asked a question about the vision of Melanos and Lady Eleanor, what their dynamic was. And
what happened? Oh, so you originally wanted to know what your vision for Simon Molinis and Lady Eleanor was intended to be. Oh, I see. There's a lot of chat going on. I can't keep up with you guys. But you said that they were close friends until left for the wars. In fact, many planned marriage. So there's a planned marriage with Lady Eleanor and Lord Molinis. I kind of omitted some of this stuff because in this campaign for 579 common year for running the Temple of Elemental Evil, this stuff didn't happen because there was no Greyhawk Wars. I did state that Lord Molinis did go off to fight in some adventures, some wars with Furandi, but I left out the stuff about the Greyhawk Wars. So I try to get it to fit this campaign. You guys are all going crazy on me here. So in your module, you came up with 4 conclusions, which is really cool. Yeah, by the way, you guys can't get this module. It's not available publicly anywhere on the internet. The only way to get a module like this is somebody would have to have given it to you to run at a convention for the tournament of Living Greyhawk back between 2000 and 2009. If you were lucky, if you were like a triad member, you probably have all of them. If you're one of the authors, you probably just have the ones you wrote or the ones you ran. I happen to have many of the Viscounty ones, but only a few others. I have people on Discord always asking me if they can get hold of them, but I always turn them down. I did write up a whole bunch of notes on Noble Ambitions, all that dialogue and stuff on my website. And I don't share it publicly, but if somebody does ask me that's running the campaign, I'll help them run their campaign by sending them my notes and talking about it. So that's where I go with that. But I won't send them the original copy of this. I don't want to get into trouble.
Well, I mean, WotC owns it.
Yeah.
I mean, they paid me with a book or something.
That's true. They paid you a book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if somebody wants to rewrite it, I will certainly give permission. I don't have much ego attached to what I've done. It's there for the people to enjoy. And let's face it, in role-playing games, GMs rewrite modules all the time. And so that's fine with me.
And these are published modules. They're not just some fan content on a website somewhere. But of course, you should be given credit, obviously.
But I mean, I'm 75 by now, and credit really doesn't matter that much anymore.
This should be part of your legacy. This is a very impressive piece of work.
Yeah.
I kind of left a lot of that convention stuff behind a long time ago because, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a I love me page.
I just do this for fun. And the guys on Discord encourage me. Sometimes I'm not in the mood, and when they start commenting on stuff, it gets me in the mood again. Like, oh.
Well, I wrote this to have fun. I mean, I didn't expect to get rich off of it or, you know, become famous. I mean, some of the people that worked with me did within our group, like Ron Lundeen and some of the other people. And Ron Laidman still runs cons and GMs quite a bit. And he has a merchandise thing. And so some people pushed it a little farther. I was just writing to have some fun.
And you know, I'm kind of semi-retired too, so that's how I do it. Oh, by the way, the module, I just noticed something shocking. In your first introduction sentence in your module, you named her Lady Ashbury.
Yeah.
Ash. Well,
yeah, we did
a lot of the modules they reworded that. It's Osbury. There's no H. There's no letter H in a lot of the other modules.
Yeah.
Dang.
Well, let's face it, we didn't have copy editors back then.
I know. I've been 7 years pouring through this stuff, trying to sort it out. I'm trying to stay consistent. I'm trying to stay to canon. I always tell everybody that. I always stick to canon, to the original box set, all the modules, all the other lore books that came out, and as much as I can with Living Greyhawk. Then the goal is not to change anything, but to expand. Like Gary Gygax intended, create more locations, more NPCs that fit within the existing canonical world, not just make stuff up out of the blue, because I thought it was cool to have a lightsaber and a blue dragon.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So before, Harn hasn't said anything in a while, and I'm sorry you're sitting there saying nothing, but do you have any questions more about this campaign for Rick, maybe?
You know, I don't. It's just been great hearing him talk about it. I've got the resources on your site about this, and I really think it is great to meet with one of these original authors of these modules. So Rick, it means a lot for me to meet you.
Well, I'm glad
I
someone's
know that.
carrying it on.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. And if I ever come up with anything else, I'll be sure to let you guys know.
I would love to see anything that you come up with. I really would.
Oh, that leads to another question real quick about how you kind of left us hanging in this module. I know you wrote more modules, but they're not as connected to this immediate storyline.
Well, I didn't have to because there are other people that picked up the storyline after me. And I don't even know what they are. I never saw them. I had a couple of people contact me later on after I quit doing Living Greyhawk and say, we're going to continue the Milanos Lady Asbury storyline. Do you mind?
Oh.
And I'd say, no, go right ahead. You've got the base characters. I don't own them. Do what you want with them.
I do have those modules. They're a little bit disconnected from this module, but they are the same characters with new ideas and storylines.
Mm-hmm. Because nobody stays the same.
Well, I do appreciate all this content so I can help develop this sandbox version of the campaign, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry. I probably got rid of a lot of stuff, changing computers over the years, and that I didn't have more of the materials that we used, but you got everything that I had.
Okay. Well, if I ever decide to do anything with this module, I'll let you know and I'll have you review it.
Okay.
But right now I'm just focusing on expanding the lands into the wild coast. So that way all Dungeon Masters can play this campaign from different angles. Yeah. Because I got different DMs playing different games, different rule sets and different ways that are coming at the campaign. So right now we are writing all the clans of the elves in the Gnarly Forest. We just got 2 of them done. We got 2 more left to do. Well, I don't think there's any more questions on the chat here. And we know how to pronounce Milanos.
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 Yes.
Milanos. What kind of punctuation is that? Is that French?
I don't know. It's just what I came up with.
Okay. Okay, you just made it up. Got it. Well, thank you. Okay, well, if nobody has any more questions, Hearn, thank you for joining our live stream. We've been going about an hour and a half now. If you have one final question, you're welcome to ask it right now.
I wish I had a really good question, but I don't. But I look forward to you reaching out to me in the future, and I can give you an update as to where my party has gotten to or what kind of trouble they got themselves into, which is too easy with the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Hearn, let's do this again when your party has done some
yes,
assessments. I want to hear what happened.
And I would love to hear from Rick again in the future.
Sure.
So, thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Well, thanks for being here, and I'm glad to see people are enjoying this stuff. I mean, that was the reason we did it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rick Bruner, author of Living Greyhawk, of my favorite modules, and thank you for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here and for the night until next week.
All right.
You guys have a good night, and I hope you guys' adventures and campaigns were as fun as mine have been.
Cheers, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.